My name is Paul Hockla. Okay, I live in
Could you spell?
Okay, it's Hockla.
What's the origins of this name? Ethnic background?
Well, on my grandmother's side, it was an Italian, and on my father's side, it was Austrian.
Huh.
Yeah.
So, Hockla.
Yeah, Hockla. H-O.
Hockla.
Yeah. Hockla.
That's coming from Australian name?
Well, that's yes, Austria.
Austria.
Yeah.
Austria.
Austria.
Yeah, not Australia.
No, Austria.
So when you born?
I was born on December the 17th, 1931.
How about your families?
Okay, my family, my father died when he was 74, and my mother died when she was 76.
So, what school did you go?
I went to the Orchardville School for a year or two, and
Where?
in Stafford Springs, or it would be Orchardville. Okay.
What state?
Connecticut.
Connecticut.
Yeah, and then they moved us down. They closed that little. It was a one-room house, one-room school, and then they took and they brought us down to the Borough School. And at the Borough School, I went there for a few years, and then we moved to Broadbrook, and I went to Ellsworth for a while, Ellsworth High.
All right. So, what were you doing when the Korean War broke out?
I was working on what they call Route 15. I was a truck driver, and I drove a dump truck. They were building a new road, and I got drafted.
You got that drafted?
I got drafted.
Do you remember when was that?
It was in November of 52.
November 52?
Yeah.
And so you went through the basic military training.
I went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina. I took infantry training. And when I got done with infantry training, I was shipped to Korea.
You knew that the Korean War broke out at the time, right?
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, but I was at that time. I was a truck driver. I was making pretty good money. And so you say, well, maybe they'll draft me, and that'll be it.
So have you thought that you might be end up in?
Oh, I knew I was going to go into the service. I knew that the Korean War was on, and I knew that. Yeah.
So you thought that you might be end up in Korea. Have you thought
I
that?
wanted to go.
You wanted to go?
I wanted to go.
Why?
Because
you may lose your life.
That's true. But when I took basic training, when I took my basic training, I gave it the best I could. And I had my sergeant, he said to me, he said, Paul, he says, for what you did in training, he says, if you go to Korea, he says, you'll come back. That's what he said. And you know what? He was right. The last four numbers on my serial number was 7077.
Lucky 3 sevens.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, our company in Korea, we had 170 men. I was in Baker Company of the 14th Regiment, 25th Division.
25th Division?
Yeah, 25th Division. And there was 170 men in that company. And we wound up in combat on Memorial Day of 1953. And I was one of 25 guys that wasn't wounded or killed. I came home with that when the war when that was over, there was 25 of us that was in a tent. They kept us in a tent until we got reinforcements.
When did you leave for Korea?
Oh, when did I get to Korea?
No, when did you leave?
Oh,
Korea
I left
from the
there.
United
Okay,
States?
I think it was around July of 1954. The war had. I was there when the war ended.
Oh.
Yeah, and
What you said that you were drafted in 1952 November, so it was almost the, 1953.
I spent 8 weeks in combat. 8 weeks. I mean, wait, 16 weeks in training, and then I went right to Korea.
But no,
What?
you were discharged from the military and from Korea July 1954.
Yes.
So
No, November of 1954. November of 54.
when did you arrive in Korea?
I probably in April of 53.
Oh, okay. Now it makes sense.
Okay.
So did you take a ship?
Yes, I went over on the McRae and came back on the MiGs. The MiGs.
I mean, when you leave for Korea, was ship that you were in, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Troop ship.
Uh-huh. And then where did you arrive in Korea?
We went to Japan,
Yeah.
and then from Japan we went to Busan.
Busan. So tell me about it. After you arrived in Busan, where did you go and what did you do?
Okay, I have books here on. We wound up. We were in Camp North Star, okay, and the Chinese started pushing all kinds of artillery into us, and a lot of people were wounded right then and there, and we went into an outpost. There was 4 outposts: Alco, Vegas, Carson, and East Berlin. And when we got in there, our company thought it was just another company, and it was a battalion. And we lost a lot of men. And like I said, I have in this book here, right here, it shows the monuments that they made in Nevada.
So you were rifleman or what?
I was an infantryman.
Infantryman, and what did you do especially? Did you drive trucks or what? Or you
No. I was right out in combat.
Combat.
I was in combat the whole time until the war ended. I did, and my platoon leader, Perry Edgar, he had a severe head injury, and I carried him up and laid him in a slit trench. And the Stars and Stripes wrote later that he was also killed. Later he died. And I found out that almost 50 some odd years later, he never came back into the military. He was discharged with a plate in his head, okay, and we finally met, and here's the picture of him.
So Stars and Stripes said
He
killed.
was also killed.
What do you mean by also killed?
Well, because there was so many. We had 10 killed and 2 missing.
But that was wrong.
Well, on that one particular guy, yes.
Right. So
yeah, I found him later. What happened? He wrote an article in the 25th Division, And I says, that guy that said he was the lieutenant in Baker Company of my platoon has to be lying. It can't be him because I have the proof that he was killed, okay? Because on Stars and Stripes.
Oh, the proof you mean the
The stars,
articles in the Stars and Stripes?
yeah.
Okay.
And so when a friend of mine gave me his address, he lived in Vermont. And I got a hold of him and we met.
What did he say to you when you met him again?
When he seen me, he said, I remember you now. He says, I remember
That's
you.
it? You saved him.
I did, and I have the letters here of what he wrote.
Could you read it?
Okay. Dear Paul, it was great seeing you on Sunday and getting to know what a great lifestyle you have in Stafford Springs. What what a far cry from your time in the U.S. Army. Spending time with you, looking at your pictures, and talking with you about what we did has been a big help to me regarding questions I have, and I lived with since then. As a friend and as an Army buddy, I also want to say, Paul, for a job well done for the 2nd Platoon member, and thank you for saving my life.
That's a nice letter.
See you soon in Vermont. Perry.
Is he still alive?
No.
He died?
About 3 months later, he had a massive heart attack. And this is a letter from his mother, from his wife.
What do you mean? That's not written by...
This was this was written by him. But after that, he had a heart attack, and this is what his wife wrote.
Oh, okay.
To who it may concern, regarding Paul Hockla of Stafford Springs, Connecticut, who was active during the Korean War. My husband, Perry Ladden Egger, had deceased, served as a platoon leader in Korea in 1953. He was with the 1st Battalion, 14th Infantry Regiment, 25th Infantry Division. On May of 1953, Perry received severe injuries while engaging in battle. A friend, Paul Hockla, refused to believe that he had died. Although after at the scene, he brought this was so. During intense battle activity, Paul refused to leave Perry and protected him with and picked him up with his belt and put him in a slit trench to protect him. My husband attentively received from his wounds to Paul Hockla. Perry often spoke of Paul and that he should have received the Bronze Star. As Perry's wife of 52 years, I know I owe a big debt to Paul Hockla for receiving my husband during that terrified battle. Charlotte Egger.
Very nice.
Well, this
you did wonderful job for this couple.
And they tried to get me the Bronze Star with V for Valid, and sent our Rob Simmons. He got me this.
What is that?
It's a medal. It says here for heroism in combat.
Who gave it to you?
He was a senator. His name was Rob Simmons.
Of Connecticut.
Yes.
Could you show that to us again? Hold it up to the screen. Great. higher. That's it. Yes. And did you get the bronze?
No, because the reason why Perry had died before, he put down here that thank you for saving my life, but due to the fact that he didn't sign the thing, Rob Simmons gave me this,
Okay.
but I haven't got the bronze. If he had been alive, I would have got it. And here is a picture of Rob Simmons giving me this.
That's very, very nice. Did you get any medal or ribbon?
No, the ribbons I got are these here.
Yeah.
I have the combat infantry badge. I never was wounded. Like I say, the last four numbers were 7077.
There must have been a lot of occasion where that you almost lost your life. Were there dangerous moments?
I did. Many, many times. It was, yeah, I can remember when I was the last man, here's what happened. After I carried Pegger up the hill, I went back down the hill, and we had a bunch of people wounded already, and Ed Holland was from Fall River, and he was next to me, and he just got wounded. And he started to go back up the hill. He wound up with a piece of shrapnel in his side of his helmet. And he says to me, Paul, he says, they're moving out. What's left of us, we're moving out. And we had a forward observer, a Chinese forward observer, that was in a trench up on the skyline that was on a hill just beyond us. He had a burp gun, and he would fire that burp gun and just spray the area. And he had an antenna on his back, and you could see the antenna because it was on the top of the hill, and it was against there was nothing in the background. You could see the antenna swaying back and forth. I took my M1, and I sat on the side of the hill. I sat on the side of the hill with the M1, and I watched the antenna. And when he came up about waist high to fire the burp gun again, I pull the trigger, and the last thing I seen was the antenna falling over, and he never fired another shot. Yeah, I'll never forget that day. And I'll remember one other thing. When we were in a trench, the Chinese were throwing hand grenades and potato mashers in the trench. And this fellow, this lived with me. It lives with me today. This fellow was sitting in a trench, and a potato masher landed in his lap. And when it did, his intestines was in his hands like this, okay? And there was dirt all over it already. And this is what he said, Ma. I'll never forget that.
Ma?
Ma.
What is that?
My mother, his mother.
Mom.
Yeah. Something that stays with you all your life.
Do you suffer from PTSD?
No, I don't. I was for a while, and what I did is I was so busy working. I was working 65 and 70 hours a week, and that kept me busy.
Did you write back to your family, or did you have a girlfriend?
Oh, I
at the
did.
time?
Yeah, I did. I met my girlfriend when I was 18 years old. I met her in 1950.
Mm.
Okay, and when I came home, she would write to me, and I would write to her and my parents. And when I came home, and we got married in 1955, and we're still married.
Ah,
We're still married.
uh,
We've been married 58 years.
that's very nice. Do you still keep those letters that you wrote back to her?
Probably I don't know. We had so many letters and stuff like that. Probably a lot of them were disappeared. You know.
So when did you leave Korea?
I believe it was in July of '54. The war had all. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. The war ended in July the 27th.
Right.
So wait a minute. I left in it was. I left in let's see. Gee, wait a minute. I thought it was April of '54.
Yeah. November.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was April of '54.
How much were you paid?
Well, combat, I made. They gave us. When you were in combat. I was a corporal, and so I think I was making $20 for combat. I think you got for that. You know,
That's
it's
an
just
extra, right?
yeah. Well, yes. But don't forget, it's 60 years later. I don't remember exactly.
About $100, right? What did you do with the money?
I sent it home.
Oh,
I sent it home. Yeah, and because I knew when I got home, I was going to marry the woman that I was dating. And so we got married in 1955.
uh-huh.
April 16th, 1955, we got married.
So you saved it.
I saved, yeah. You couldn't spend no money over there.
Exactly. Did you have any experience working with the Korean officer, Korean soldier?
Yeah, we had Katusas.
Mm.
They were very good.
Mm.
The Katusas were very
Anything
good.
you remember?
I have some pictures of them. Yeah, I do have some pictures of them. Matter of fact, the one that I have pictures of is one that got killed over there.
Mm.
Yeah, he got killed on Alco.
So when you send the copies, write it down there, when, where, what, whom, all this information.
Yeah, the only thing I can remember is most of them were Kim. They were just their
Yeah,
first name.
you don't have to give me full name of
Yeah,
Koreans, but
yeah.
where, like
Yeah,
Vegas or the
yeah,
Chop Hill or whatever.
Yeah,
okay?
right,
And when and these things, all right?
okay.
Yeah. Have you been back to Korea?
No, I haven't.
Mm. Do you know what Korea is now in terms of economy and political system?
Well, I'll tell you this. My daughter bought a Korean car, and my daughter-in-law bought a Korean car.
Uh-huh. So you know that the Korean economy is prospering.
I do.
It's the seventh largest trading partner to the United States and 11th largest economy in the world.
I know.
So what do you think about the legacy of the Korean War and Korean War veterans?
What do I think about them?
Yeah, I mean, what is the legacy of Korean War and your service?
I tell you, I'm glad that I went. I'm glad I did what I did,
Mm-hmm.
and I think everybody that went there figured that they helped,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the way I feel. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was like I say, it was only at the time I was in combat was just about 4 months, but the 4 months were the worst part because they were trying to make as much territory as they were. And
Can
so,
you describe the typical day, the worst battle that you fought?
yeah, Memorial Day of 1953.
Uh-huh.
It was Memorial Day.
Uh-huh.
That's why when I do the parade on Memorial Day, I carry the Korean flag.
Tell
I
me
do.
about the details. How close were you with the Chinese or the North Koreans?
Oh, they were, yes. When they first came, the first bunch came with rifles, the second bunch came with hand grenades, and the third bunch came empty-handed and picked up what the first and second dropped.
Mm-hmm.
That's how a lot of it was. But they got to the point where most of them, they wore sneakers, and most of them, they would sneak up and try, like if you were in trenches or anything before you started into combat, they would throw as many of them concussion grenades into the trenches. Yeah.
You remember you killed and you saw them being killed?
Oh yeah. We would. They would get. Sometimes they'd get into the trench, and they'd pick them up and throw them over the other side. Yeah. Sometimes it went hand-to-hand combat. Yeah.
You did?
Well, yes. When they got in the trenches, it went hand-to-hand.
They came.
Sometimes they'd come right into the trenches. Yeah.
How close?
The trenches were only about that wide. It was. Yeah.
Right before you.
Oh yeah. At one time, we were walking over the dead in the trenches.
And how did you defend yourself?
Would that
Use knife or
I used that bayonet, the M1 with a bayonet. Yes, but a lot of them, they had a khaki uniform, like sort of a brownish, light brownish uniform, but most of them had sneakers. Yeah, and the way it looked to me, they were very young. They looked like they were probably only 16 or 17 years, or if they were that old. And you could see they weren't very old people. They were young people, very young. Yeah. And so.
What do you think about those killing? You have to end up in this Korean War, and you had to kill those, right, enemies.
You had to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
You were taught to do it. You were taught to do it. It was either you did it or they did it to you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sure.
Is there any message to young generations
In Korea?
in Korea and also in the United States about your service and about the Korean War and the war that U.S. engaged right now?
Well, I'll tell you, Korea is wonderful people in Korea, some very, very nice people in Korea. And at one time here, within the last 2 or 3 weeks, what North Korea was doing, I was sort of worried. I was worried very much. You got a man there that has no mercy. And I'll tell you, if he ever started anything again, the United States would be there to help.
Do you have grandchildren in the age in high school or college?
I have one grandchild, one boy.
In high school?
No, he's working. He's got a job. He's a machinist. Yeah, he went to trade school, and he became a machinist.
How old is he?
Right now he's 19. He's going to be 20.
Okay.
He's going to be 20 the 18th.
Would he be interested in coming to the workshop? I am inviting the descendants of Korean War veterans to the Washington, D.C. from July 24th to July 8th. It's the 60th years anniversary of Korea-U.S. alliance and armistice. And I am hosting a workshop for the descendants.
Oh.
Would he be interested in?
I don't. You see, he is so busy on working. He works for like a machinist for Pratt and Whitney and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he may not have.
Probably not. Yeah, but I am. I'm going to the 25th Division reunion on July the 31st until Sunday of August
Where?
in in Gatensburg. It's just outside of Washington,
Okay.
and my whole family's going.
Oh,
My wife is going. My son and his wife. My two sons and their wives, and my daughter is also going.
good. I want to present a medal, Ambassador for Peace medal. It's from the Republic of Korea. And also I'm going to write your name in Korean as it's pronounced. Hockla, right?
That's correct.
That's great. Paul, thank you very much for coming again for the interview. And please send your pictures or anything, memorabilia.
I'll do my best.
Yes, and to my address so that I can put those into the website and
Okay.
so that people from everywhere can see it. And
Okay.
thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
service.
Thank you.